it's great to have so much decentralized finance stuff, but I think it's time to talk about a little bit of our gaming stuff. I'm sure there are quite a few of you guys play games on the PlayStations, Xboxes, Nintendos and stuff, and we are professional game developers. We've been developing games for more than 10 years, working with the leaders in this industry. And now we'll just talk a little bit about Metaverse that we are currently building and a couple of major aspects, what it takes to make a successful Metaverse project and what is required to include in this Metaverse project to do well. So the market itself is growing. We've seen a huge exponential growth in the gaming industry in the last 10 years, especially in the mobile space. Mobile gaming is growing, as well as the PlayStation games that we see recently. We see a lot of great games being released by Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA, etc. The best example is Hogwarts Legacy, right? It costed $150 million to build. Great game, very addictive for people to play, and we see some major companies are moving into this space. So the space is growing, which is a great indication, and people always play games, right? And the entertainment is always required because we have a busy lifestyle. We always have to do something else, otherwise we'll get killed and smashed by the amount of stress. So what are the key features that we have to pay attention to when developing a game? Obviously the content is something that is every company has to care about, right? So the content is all about quality. You can't just build an ecosystem with the games that is having a poor quality content inside. Otherwise, players are not going to enjoy it truly, because content is something different that you compare it to the DeFi sector, for example, or centralized exchanges, a whole bunch of other crypto companies out there. But gaming is gaming, right? People play games not because they enjoy execution of the fast transaction on their account to exchange money, but because it brings the fun and enjoyment. And content is super important, especially when it comes to lore book. We know that some big companies out there like Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA, etc., they all develop their own lore books. Speaking of Yuga Labs, for example, Gordon, we had a great catch-up recently with him, and they're all building a great storyline of content and execution plan for the other side and for Bored Ape Yacht Club when it comes to the lore book. The lore book is a very complicated file. It's like you go and read the Wikipedia with thousands and thousands of pages, and it requires a dedication, right? You have to get into it, you have to have some professional writers who are writing a story for you, otherwise you're going to screw it up. So the lore book is super important. It has to tell the storyline of characters, it has to tell the storyline of, racing cars. It doesn't really matter what you build, it has to share the story. It has to bring the player inside of its universe and make it a part of it. So it's really important, and we, for example, at Sidus Gates are actually doing it. It takes a long time to build a lore book. It takes a couple of years at least to write thousands and thousands of pages, but we're finally releasing one of the first books that will be out of free in general, and the book is a sci-fi lead RPG book that shares the story of Sidus Heroes, and we were actually #1 in the South American market and Eastern European market. We've tested it there. We had 300,000 downloads for the book, and people really enjoyed it. So the reason for the book is like when you actually think of Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, why people loved it so much is because the storyline was cool, right? So they read a book first, and then there was a movie afterwards, right? It's not opposite, not movie and then the book. The book was an initial step to be successful. The next step is obviously the movie side, which all of us have enjoyed so much. And that's the part of the lore book as well. Utility and economic models. So we know as a matter of fact that many gaming companies out there are trying to experiment and create some use cases for their players to make it addictive for them to use an ecosystem and use their tokens and NFTs inside of this ecosystem. And many projects actually fail to do it well, right? So the problem with NFTs these days is that everyone talks about it as something innovative. Well, not so much right now, but last year at least. I remember I went to NFT NYC as a speaker last year, and I meet a lot of great people out there, and I ask them, what do you guys do? Well, we've made an NFT collection, and we sold it, and we've made a lot of money out of it. And I'm like, well, what's the next stage for you guys? And they think, well, we're probably going to build a game. Probably going to build a game, right? Well, the question is, do you guys have experience to build a game? No? How are you going to plan to build a game if you don't have enough experience? We're just going to hire someone. We're just going to hire another company who's going to build a game for us. Well, the scenario in that case would be a complete fail, because when you are not passionate about your project, when you're not really getting into sort of the lore book side, then obviously the ending result will be sucking money out of your project and leaving you alone with nothing. So use cases are important. Use cases is not when you stake your NFT card and you mint a lot of tokens and you are selling these tokens back to the market. Use cases are identified as utilities in the gaming ecosystem, which are used by the players in the various different tasks, including building the spaceships, flying to the other planets, fighting with the other players and improving your weapons, upgrading your armor, building your own stuff inside of the game as well, improving the customizing furniture inside of your houses, hiring people, executing certain tasks like upgrading certain gems and accessories in the game. So there is a lot of things you can actually think about as a game developer. Well, as an artist, obviously it is a bit of a problem, because you obviously need some proper game producer inside of your company. Well, we also have our own layer 2, not as big as Arbitrum or Optimism and stuff, but it's used by thousands of players. Next month we're expecting about 300,000 users to come into our ecosystem, additionally to what we have already. It is a ZK layer 2 solution, has 1.5 million transactions an hour, which is pretty good so far, and it's getting improved all the time. We have a team of 200 people, so it's a pretty big team. We have all of the major investors like Animoca Brands, Mr. Beast, OKX, Polygon guys, KuCoin, etc. So a whole bunch of people are supporting us. We are growing as a Web 2.5 publisher, and probably in about 2 or 3 years we'll be one of the largest, competing with such companies as EA, Ubisoft easily, if we do everything correct. So far, we have a pretty active community. We have 300,000 people in Twitter, 140,000 in Discord, 100,000 people in Telegram, and the community is growing non-stop as well. And that comes to the active community part, right? Many gaming projects actually fail to communicate to their community. There is a big problem when it comes to communication. There is no transparency. You just create a project and you ignore problems. People ask questions and you do not answer these questions. You do not have a 24/7 moderator that answers questions in a Discord or a Telegram, and it creates a problem. There are more and more problems that will arise if you're not answering questions properly to from your community. So, it's important for a project to be 100% transparent, because everything is based on the success of the community's happiness. And if there is a satisfaction among community members, obviously there is a high chance your project will do extremely well. If community is not going to be happy, like it happened with Shiba recently, Shibarium, right? They've just copied the idea of the blockchain, and what happened? The community found it out, right? And the first thing they do, they publish it in Twitter, and then they reposted it, they retweet it, they do a lot of likes, and here we go, minus 10% in a single day, just because of a little tiny reason, right? So do not ignore community. Community is super important, and if they will be growing and becoming richer with you guys alone, that makes a huge difference. At Sidus Heroes, we're not just a gaming project, right? So as I said, we're a pretty big team of 200 people, and we have the best game developers from all of the places around the world. It's an Australian-based company. We have a huge head office here in Opus building as well. If you're interested, you can come and visit us. And we also have a huge office in Thailand and US as well. So we've been developing games for a long time, and it's important for us now to build 40+ games, AAA quality, not some sort of indie game / mobile gaming experience that is forgettable in about a month or two. We're building proper gaming experience within the MMORPG world that we're currently building, and we're combining in this universe, in this huge MMORPG world, 40+ games with the different game modes, right? So when When it comes to games, we've just released a Battle Royale strategy, which is becoming very popular in the Indian market and the Philippine market. We are releasing a third-person shooter, which will be highly efficient and probably a very good competitor to PUBG and Fortnite, at least to say. That is built on the top of our own gaming engine as well, by the way. It's a unique innovation that we actually brought to this industry. Pretty cool engine. I mean, it's not a Unity or Unreal engine, it's a browser-based engine that is capable to provide a high quality of content in the browser within 7.5 seconds access, one click, no downloads, free to play, and it's highly accessible from, by people from all of the world. Because the biggest problem in the gaming industry now is like when you ask people what are you building on, the answer is Unity or Unreal Engine 5. The problem with that is that they ignore people living in the, we call it developed regions, countries like Myanmar, Cambodia, Nigeria, Kenya, etc. Those people are not able to afford PlayStation 5s and PlayStation 4s or Xboxes or Nintendos and stuff. But they have an average device of Android, 1 gig of RAM and 300 KB per second internet, right? So that creates a problem with accessibility to the gaming process. And the answer to it is the browser experience. If you're able to provide a great access to all of the players around the world, this solves the problem of accessibility, which is really, really important. Without going too much into the technical details, we've created a module system that allows people to become the co-founders of different functions within the game. It's being used by thousands and thousands of players already inside of our ecosystem. We are pretty happy about the results so far. If you're interested, you can check it out on the website. We have a lot of details there about it. The rise of artificial intelligence. We've noticed that in the gaming industry now, we see a lot of projects are testing artificial intelligence technology, and they're moving towards the direction when NPCs and local characters and inhabitants in those places that you develop inside of the game are becoming more interactive. So when you integrate an AI technology into the NPC, it becomes more interactive, right? It doesn't answer your questions in the repetitive way. If you ask them a question, it gives you a very innovative answer based on the artificial intelligence concept. So it is a great advantage that we as game developers can take and start developing things on the top of the AI concept, especially when it comes to generative art content and interaction between the player and the local ecosystem inside of the game. So definitely that's something to keep an eye on. I'm sure many of you guys are speculating and playing with certain coins that are related to the gaming industry. You obviously got to be very careful about it, but those companies who are really taking an advantage of the AI aspect can benefit a lot, actually. Because in the gaming industry, it's completely opposite to the DeFi industry. Gaming industry is all about joy and fun, right? Excitement. If you play the game and it brings the fun, even if the access is very expensive, and we've noticed it with the Yuga Labs once they did this game recently, the access to this game was more than 3,000 bucks, right? So to get an access pass, that was ridiculous. So none of the big companies out there would actually do such an experiment, but Yuga Labs did really well. So they have a specific niche, a luxury niche, and people are ready to pay a lot of money to participate in their gaming experience. That kind of gives you an indication that there are different types of people playing games, and these people are ready to spend money. I wish all of you guys to have some fun in the gaming industry, especially in the crypto space, and make sure you play games, not just trade and use some DeFi products, because otherwise life will be boring. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you for your attention.